Hello, everyone. Today I'm here with Andrew Myers. For the last 5 years, Andrew has been providing consulting services through his company, U Home Consulting, using his expertise as a licensed occupational therapist to help people to live more safely in their own homes. Welcome to the show, Andrew.
Thanks for having me, Stephen.
So tell me a little bit about more what you do.
Well, thank you for asking. First off, excited to be here. So I'm an occupational therapist by trade. If you don't know what an occupational therapist is, we work in all types of settings. We work in the hospital setting, we work in school settings, we work in rehab centers, we work out in the community as home health, healthcare providers. And what an occupational therapist's main concern is making sure that folks can operate independently, as independently as possible with doing everything that they need to do. Everything from dressing, bathing, cooking, cleaning. Where that matters in the case of healthcare is if someone's had a stroke. They can't use the left side of their body. So how do they get into their shower? How do they dress themselves? How do they take care of themselves at home? So our training goes very in depth into everything that you could say a physical therapist would in terms of the brain, the spinal cord, the muscles, the visual, the cognition, things like that. But instead of us being focused on gait and walking as a physical therapist would be, we're interested in how dysfunctions in the different areas of the body can impact someone's ability to live and to thrive. So that's kind of the general occupational therapy spiel that I will give you in the audience.
So, what got you interested in setting up your own consulting business apart from the work you do for the healthcare world in the more,
Yeah, I think so you had mentioned in the introduction, I've been doing this business of home modifications from a clinical perspective for 5 years. I've been an occupational therapist for 10 years, and I like to think those first 5 years really prepared me for this business that I so love and enjoy. I started off my career in working in psychiatry, looking at how psychosocial issues and diagnoses impact a individual's capacity or ability to function in the community. So kind of laying a very holistic framework and approach for how I look at day-to-day function and individuals' habits and routines. And then the next 3 years was me doing working in a rehab setting and also working in different hospitals in the Maryland, DC, Virginia area. And it was my work with Hopkins that really opened my eyes in the acute care setting where, I was the occupational therapist running around in the hospital, helping folks, after a hip surgery or after a stroke, after a traumatic brain injury, after a diagnosis of dementia, like helping them understand, helping the clinical team understand how do this new diagnosis or this current fall, or how does this impact this individual's ability to return home safely. And from that experience at Hopkins, I learned that so many people were unprepared to go home. Their home was not set up to allow them to thrive. And as a result of that, a lot of people could not go home. You have to consider that the average length of stay in a hospital setting is 2 to 3 days. The average length of stay in like a rehab setting is 7 to 10. So you think about after someone has a significant life event, again, I'll give a fall as an example, something that's instantaneous, results in a fractured hip. Essentially, someone's going to have a week and a half to figure out how to make their home accessible or how to set things up and have the necessary supports to be able to return home. AARP does this ongoing survey of the nation that asks the question, how many adults ages 65 and older want to return home? their latest 2020 results indicated that it's 73% of people want to stay in their home. And I've found in my experience, 10 years, is that very few people have actually asked, well, how can I do that? And so my passion, my interest in starting UHome was trying to get ahead of the conversation. So instead of you talking to me when you're in the hospital after that fracture or that stroke, I'm in your home beforehand, and we're kind of looking at this and just saying like, okay, if given kind of what's currently going on with you, like, how can we make your bathroom safer? How can we make your bedroom safer? Cooking
Let's
is,
talk. Let's talk a
yeah,
little bit about that.
sure,
So
sure.
let's suppose I'm in my 50s and I'm thinking ahead. I'm feeling fine and fit now, but I don't ever want to sell my home, but I do want to be able to live safely in it. And I might bring you in to consult with me about how to make my home work for me if I lose some mobility or lose some function. Is that the correct understanding?
Yeah, so a lot of my clients are planners, folks in that exact scenario that you described, Stephen. And I also get folks who are calling me from the hospital bed, who are just they're in that predicament and just wanting to know what can I do to
Right.
make them safer.
So let's talk about some of the things that people can do. So obviously, if somebody's in an acute scenario and the hospital, can they discharge them if they don't have a safe? I didn't think hospitals could discharge people if they didn't have a safe place to go stay.
Um, they cannot. Does it happen? Sure. Especially if some people, as is the case that I've experienced many times, people will just go home. They'll sign out what's called against medical advice, because they're not going to a rehab center or they're not going to long-term care. And yeah, there's been instances where that has happened.
So let's go back to my scenario. You've got someone who is fit or considers themselves
Active.
physically active, physically mobile, whatever you want to say.
Sure.
And they bring you in to take a look, say at their bathroom and their kitchen, because those are the two main things that we tend to talk about. Share with me some of the things that you would typically come across that you'd be recommending people look at.
For sure. So I think it's important in a question like that, Stephen, is to kind of separate my title a little bit. So, I'm a therapist. Okay. So I'm trained in that didactic, really trying to understand what's behind the present issue. Right. So I like to think I'm pretty good at asking questions, and to really kind of just figure out, what do you value? How committed are you to staying in your home? What are the different health factors that are currently at play that could influence your decision making? What type of social supports do you have in your community that could enable you to live in your home longer? What's your family think, right? Very few people operate in a silo, and a lot of times I'm navigating different family dynamics. And so I kind of just explore that with you. Very often, Stephen, I enter into scenarios. Well, first off, I should say, very rarely does the homeowner call me. Typically, the adult child who's concerned about mom and dad, or it's the geriatric case manager, or maybe it's an elder law attorney or the real estate agent who's trying to figure out like what's a good fit, for their client. So typically I'm working with a couple different perspectives, and there's different ideas on what this individual or this couple may need to live safely and independently. So, if you think about, if you're kind of drawing a diagram, you have health, you have the home, and then you have family, and you have resources. And kind of in the middle of all of that, there's these values, right? That the values that are important to you. So for example, it may be really important to you as the homeowner that you want to continue cooking. Cooking meals is something that you really value. It's a part of your habit and your routine. And so we're going to look very closely at how we can make your kitchen accessible for you, and throughout the different life stages. And, how can we make this wheelchair accessible if need be? But cooking may not be important to you. So we're going to look at the bathroom and just how can we make this home livable? You know, what type of social supports do you see yourself bringing into your home, whether it's family or home health support, to be able to assist you. And we can design the home in such a way that allows you to enact that vision of how you see yourself kind of aging and uh, but on your own terms, and allowing your home to kind of support you achieve that goal. Everyone is so different, but again, being able to separate out, you know, my clinical, the occupational side, but I'm also the therapist that's really just trying to understand all these different factors.
So do you, when you're looking at this, I love the holistic approach, right? I like the idea that you're going to be looking at it from these multiple perspectives. Are the solutions that you like, do your reports come with recommendations? So you do this sort of consultation phase, and then you're going to come up with some recommendations. Are those recommendations, do they have to be very, like, do they tend on being very expensive renovations to homes?
Yeah, hey, great question. And it depends on the home. It depends on kind of what we got out of our time together. So again, if the kitchen's not meaningful to you to modify, that's, you know, 60 to 120 grand that we can say, okay, we don't need that, right? But you know, we are going to focus on the bedroom. We're going to focus on the entryway. We're going to focus on the you know, the bedroom. And what a great example of this, Stephen, is I've walked into homes where there's been thousands of dollars spent on the bathroom, but the door to the bathroom itself is not wide enough for the client to get in, or the doorway that I walked into to get into the home is not wide enough.
I've seen
So
it
it's
myself. It's ridiculous.
exactly. So that's something where I'm looking at the whole house and I'm thinking, how can we strategically use the space that you need to carry you through that continuum of care, of aging?
Do
Uh,
you, do your recommendations require the input from architects or interior designers so you know how implementable they might be?
Sometimes they do. And those are always fun projects to get into because you get a chance to work with so many different perspectives. A lot of times, you know, I'm very clear, and I think this is very important when you're working in this space of kind of when you think about the health and home, it touches so many different spheres, and it's very clear to be straightforward on what you are there for and what you are not there for, what you are good at, what you're not good at. I am not good at financial planning, right? So I'm gonna either refer out or expect to understand from the individual what are the resources that they're able to kind of put towards this project. Stephen, give me your original question again. I can kind of go a different direction, but I
I
want to.
guess my question is, you are expert at knowing about occupational therapy,
Right.
how to make us, how people need to live in the spaces they're in, how they're going to use them. But what if some of the ideas you have, you don't know if they can even be done or how they would be done because you're not an architect or you're not an interior designer. So how do you, if you're proposing something that, you know, that might have a simpler solution, maybe that an architect might see that you might not see, that's sort of like what I'm getting at. How do you collaborate with other professionals who might have a different perspective that would be helpful to your client?
Yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, so I think for when it comes to, again, knowing your scope, a lot of times my recommendations are going to be more strategic in nature. So a great example of this is there was a family that wanted their mother, mother-in-law, to live in the home with them. They were going to put her on the second story master bedroom and kind of renovate the bathroom upstairs and put a stair lift up there. But looking at the home, they had a washer and dryer and a laundry room with plenty of space that we were able to bring the contractor into the conversation. We were able to figure out that we could actually make an accessible bathroom on the first floor. That way the family could keep their master bedroom. and we'd have a great first floor set up for their mother-in-law. And they were happy as a clam, didn't think about that as an option, right? So, you know, a lot of times when I hand you my report that's like, okay, here's everything we talked about, here's our values, here's the different rooms that we spoke about, and here's the specific recommendations for those rooms. At the very end of that, that document, Stephen, you'll have a punch list of like, okay, here is in order of priority, the things that we discussed. It is up to the client to then work with the contractor, the architect, to discern, is that possible? And if it's not, then that's where we can kind of bring it back and say, okay, how can we pivot? But another way that I offer my clients flexibility is I like to think it kind of in terms of a mechanic. When you go to the mechanic, you drop off your car, you get that call, right? And I like to hear what needs to be fixed urgently, what needs to be fixed, in a few months, and what's coming down the road. What are some things you're going to want to be budgeting for, bigger projects, right? And I like to be able to do that for my clients, where it's like, okay, this is an obvious safety concern. This grab bar needs to go right here. We need to replace that broken light bulb that's been out for 2 years, fix that handrail that's shouldn't be loose, but it has, right? And then what are the things that some bigger projects that we're going to need to kind of discuss? And I like to give my clients options, right? So like, do we add the addition onto the back of the home? Let's price that out. Let's price out how much it would be to combine 2 of the rooms to make more space for the bedroom and more closet space, because that was important to you. So I like to give my people options. And I also like to, again, know what's my scope and understand that, hey, not all of these are going to fall according to plan, but at least you have your values and your what you want out of the home very clear and present. And that's oftentimes contractors love working with me because I have those hard conversations about the health in the home, so they can literally just kind of go off a to-do list and discern, what's, and it's up to them to figure out what's going to work and what's not.
So over the years, in my role as a real estate agent, I've met a number of individuals who want to go out into the community and provide consulting services about how to make people's homes more accessible, either from a perspective as a disability advocate, or the perspective as an interior designer, or an architect who is passionate about such things. Those are just 3 broad categorizations. What is your secret sauce? Like, why would someone benefit from your approach to this as opposed to any of those other modalities for evaluating the livability of a home for a person who wants to age in place, not have to move away as they lose physical or cognitive capability?
Yeah, I appreciate the question. And that's something I want to make sure it's very clear for my clients up front is, I come with clinical experience. I've worked in different hospitals or worked in different rehab centers. And having done this for 5 years now, I kind of, I'm coming at it from that holistic, from that healthcare perspective, where I'm trying to think 2 or 3 steps ahead, given your past medical or your current medical history. And also, to take it a step further, I said holistic, right? So I'm not just interested in your home. I'm also looking at what type of family support do you have locally, or, what type of home health care costs are you willing to incur to live in your home? Because guess what? Home health care is not cheap. So people need to know that if they're going to be putting money into their home in order to age in place, that there's going to be other costs associated with that. So, truthfully, Stephen, some of my clients, will get to the end of my assessment and I'll give them kind of, again, what's that continuity of aging look like for them in their home, and considering these are different things that you're going to have to price out to discern if this is going to be a financial fit for you. And there's been times where I get the call saying, hey, this isn't going to work, but, to stay in my home, but your assessment gave us the direction that we needed to make a good decision. And for that, we are grateful.
And
And
then
that,
you can refer them to me, right?
and then I can refer, yes.
But seriously, Andrew, um I'd like to, from the sake of my listeners, understand the scope of your business. So where do you offer these services? Like
Yeah. So
in terms of the United States, so for example.
I offer them in the United States.
Yeah.
I offer them virtually.
Right. That's what I wanted to get on that. You're now doing them digitally.
Yeah. So that's actually something that I started due to COVID.
Yeah.
And it's been a blessing in disguise.
Yeah, really? How come?
Yeah. So I have found that I can deliver better consultations virtually. I had already spoken about there's so many different perspectives when it comes to matters of health and home. And the virtual platform allows multiple people to engage in the conversation, to come to the table, the virtual table, and be able to piece together like what is a good solid plan that everybody can get behind. So, my process is you go to my website, you click on schedule, and you schedule a date to meet with me to do the teleconference. And then you get a link to a survey that asks you a bunch of questions about your home, your health, um, and also has you submit pictures of your home. So you walk through your home, or you or someone else can walk through your home, submit pictures of the outside, different rooms, and then I put that all together in a report that I review with you and during the live conference session. And we kind of just talk through the different, clarify some things from the survey, and again, understanding your values and kind of the social situation. Um, and then from the result of that, that's when I send out the report that you can then print off and hand to a contractor or handyman and say, hey, this is what I'm after, and this is my prioritized plan. And so that's kind of the flow of my process, and
And
it's been awesome. It's been
yeah.
really fun.
So where are your clients typically? Are they all over the country now, or are they centered in one geographical area right now? Or?
Yeah, so most of my assessments are on the East Coast. Again,
East
I'm in
Coast.
California,
Yeah.
but I'm still getting referrals from my network back when I was living in the Maryland, DC, Virginia area. So those have been the majority of my consultations as of late, but I'm starting to get more and more in California.
How,
And yeah, go ahead.
how much do you charge for this?
It's $750 for
The whole thing?
for the whole thing, but that also includes a follow-up call. And
Yeah.
people use that follow-up call for different reasons. It could be, hey, we got the contracting estimates. Do you mind just talking us through these? Or it's, hey, the work's done. Do you mind just kind of walking through the home and kind of making sure things are done right? I do offer kind of hourly rates as well if folks want a little bit more involvement, but it's my whole plan. And again, this has come from 10 years of working with older adults, is I want to just be transparent. Like, I'm not charging people hourly. I just want to here's my fee. Here's what I offer. If I can help you, I'd love to. If I'm not a good fit, I'll also tell people that. But yeah,
And
that's $750 is my fee.
I see. And are there any insurance options for people to pay for this sort of a consultation? Have
Not
it covered by their insurance?
Not yet. I hope to. I know there's legislation that's been batted back and forth in DC for quite a while to get services like these approved, but as of now, it is not. When I was in DC, there was this a couple different counties offered tax incentives for modifying their home. And it wasn't a lot, but it's, if you can get $4,200 back in taxes at the end of the year for making some changes to your home, that can be a pretty enough of incentive to kind of get people to buy. So another thing I like to do for my clients, and again, as I'm kind of opening up and reaching out to people nationwide, is just kind of helping them look through what are the resources available to you through your county, through your community, whether that's social supports and services or financial supports, and just kind of help kind of just at least get the ball rolling and helping people connect with these resources that are available.
You know, that's great. I think it's really cool. I know that in our area, there are some grants and loans available for low income people to pay for the costs of renovations that are specifically for accessibility purposes. So I hope we see more of that. And I love this idea of the tax incentive that you referred to.
Yeah.
One of the things I want to make sure I didn't miss talking about with you, Andrew, was in the course of doing these podcast episodes with guests in the past, there seems to be a trend in people living in their homes and using technology to be able to live more safely in their homes.
Yeah.
Do your recommendations ever include recommendations about use of technology as opposed to construction of things?
Yeah. So I think I said this earlier, but I'm always looking for the simple fix where possible. And technology can sometimes be a very helpful tool in, when it comes to formulating a home safety plan. So yeah, I am aware of different technologies in the home, and it can be everything. Again, we need to know what's important to the individual. What do they value? It could just be, you know what, instead of walking over to my stereo to turn up the volume, we're just going to get an Alexa service where I can shout across the room, hey, play me my music, right? Give me my playlist. Or it's, they're in the case of cognition, dementia challenges, we might need to look at some sort of remote monitoring for safety. And there's different levels of that. Actually, one that I'm kind of excited about, I just learned about, is it monitors water usage in the home. So you know that if someone's flushing the toilet, they're using the sink, you know that they're up, they're moving about, but it will send alerts to the assigned care providers that, hey, this person hasn't, used any water for the past couple hours. Like, might want to check on that. So there's very non-invasive means of kind of monitoring folks. There's more invasive, more like, video that you could use, but there's a variety of ways to apply technology to care for people.
Well, I'm glad to hear that because it's a big trend.
Yeah.
And I think it's great what you're doing. And I really appreciate you spending some time telling my listeners about it. If people want to learn more about what you're doing, Andrew, and how they might avail themselves of it, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, so best way is through my website at homeconsulting.com, or you can type in Universal Home Consulting and it will still land you on my website. And the schedule button's right there. My email, you can connect to me through my webpage. But, I want to say I'm so excited about, the opportunity to just get this information out to the community. I am always so excited when I leave my client interactions, because I genuinely feel like, I think we all love to be able to know that we're applying our gifts in a meaningful way. And this is just, my niche that I found that I love and I'm passionate about. And I know my clients, get a chance to experience that too.
Wow. Well, as I said, I appreciate you coming on the show today. And I will do my little part to let people know about what you do. And hopefully this sort of information, whether they hire you or someone else, will help somebody to make a proactive choice instead of a reactive choice so that they can live more safely in their home. So thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Awesome. Thank you, Stephen. Appreciate it.